So firstly, thank you very much for joining us today. It's really exciting to be able to present around this interesting topic around intelligent capture for SAP VIM. So your presenters today will be myself, Daniel Julam, Director at Chrome Consulting, and my colleague Fatima Youssef is one of our principal VIM P2P specialists.
Hi, everyone.
So we're aiming to keep today's session to around 40 minutes in duration, which will include a run through with the current challenges that our customers are experiencing when using the traditional BCC ICC solution. We're then going to dive into explaining how the new Intelligent Capture for SAP solution works and what additions are available. We're then going to run you through a couple of real-life, customer example invoices and show you some of the before and after results that you can expect from Intelligent Capture. And then we're going to finish off with a bit of a session on how to move to Intelligent Capture. So what are some of the steps for a new implementation and an upgrade? And then we're going to finish off with a Q&A session. So as you notice, we're using Zoom today. So we've got a Zoom question facility. So we just ask if you can post your questions as we go. And at the end of today's session, we'll cover off those questions and hopefully get some answers for you. We're also going to be running a couple of polls during the session today. So please participate in the polls. A couple of questions there we're going to ask, and we'll share those results at the end. So why are we here today? So firstly, at our last webinar in June, the question was asked, what topic would you like us to cover next? And moving to Intelligent Capture for SAP was unanimously chosen by all the attendees at the last webinar as the next topic that we should be covering. So secondly, when speaking to our customers, they want to know more about Intelligent Capture and how can Intelligent Capture for SAP improve their straight-through and zero-touch invoice processing rates. And finally, what we want to achieve here today is impart some of our knowledge and experience from the more than 7 projects that we've worked on from new implementations and upgrades for Intelligent Capture for SAP. So what are some of the current challenges with the existing Business Capture Center solution, OCR? So during our last webinar, we presented the Turnpike's Insight and Analytics KPI solution. So where the core theme around that was around how can we improve zero touch and straight through processing. So to kick off today's webinar, I want to just draw you back to this topic of straight through processing as your OCR performance and data extraction is really a core theme to improving your straight through or zero touch processing. So to quickly cover this again, the ideal invoice processing scenario has little to no manual touches on the invoice as it passes through from receiving the invoice to final payment. And now considering the new requirements around mandatory payment time reporting, streamlining your vendor payment cycle is more important than ever. So aiming for straight through processing is important as the greater the automation and the fewer the manual steps, the overall reduction in time and cost to process a supplier invoice. So that effectively is what we're here about to talk about today, is about how the new OpenText Intelligent Capture for SAP plays a really key role in improving your straight-through processing. So we are going to start by taking 2 quick polls. And poll 1 that you should see up on your screen now is, do you think the invoice recognition results impact the touchless processing rates? There you are. Awesome. I'll let that run just for a couple more seconds. We're getting some pretty good results there. I think it's quite unanimous, actually. Excellent. And while we're here, we're going to just quickly run our second poll. And just really I guess, reflecting on your current implementation in your environment, what OCR recognition performance are you currently achieving? Are you unsure or less than 10%? Is it quite low, so between 10 and say 25, 50%? Or are you up, do you believe that you're up in the higher OCR recognition rates above 75%? Excellent. Just let that run for another second or two. Perfect. Awesome. Interesting results there. We'll cover those results off at the end of the session today. So before Intelligent Capture for SAP, there were two solutions. Firstly, there was Invoice Capture Center, or ICC, and then there was Business Capture Center, BCC. So this alone created a lot of confusion, as there was an OCR platform that was sold and implemented differently depending on your use case. So importantly, you couldn't later on change the use case either outside of vendor invoicing. So ICC was for invoices and BCC was for all other document types, such as, sales documents, HR documents, leave forms, and so forth. Most notably, ICC and BCC were often quite difficult for us to set up and cumbersome to train for new vendor invoice templates. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. And lastly, the configuration for these solutions were performed in two places. So we'd have to perform some of the configuration inside of SAP, and some of the configuration would be done on the OCR server and the validation client. So there was quite a lot of double effort, and it was a challenging solution to manage configuration. So let's look a little bit further now into one of the biggest frustrations when it comes to BCC and ICC, and that's the process of training the solution to recognize the new vendor invoices and fields. So once an invoice enters the system, it's OCR'd and sent for validation for any missing or incorrectly identified fields to be manually corrected. So whilst that's really easy from an operator's perspective to update those fields, the challenge lies in the fact that the effort put into validation isn't also feeding back into the learning database at the same time. So a second invoice might come through for that supplier, or a third invoice, and the corrections you've made then won't retro apply to the next. Yeah. So to update the learning database, you had to go through a process called ART training, and that was quite a cumbersome process. So from a front-end operator's AP team member's perspective, what they would do would be to mark that invoice for training. A user would then need to log on to the back-end server, where they would then manually train the invoices. Then normally a technical administrator would then log into the server. They would transfer the learnings from the dev server or a non-productive server to the productive server. And then finally, the learning database would be updated for the next time. So from our experience, this happened too infrequently for the learning database to get updated often enough. And quite often we find that the process is just not done at all. So therefore, you're not getting that constant learning cycle and the learning database getting updated. So finally, just a little bit of a summary around some of the challenges with the current BCC ICC solution. So as we've already demonstrated, the effort to fix a missing field in the validation step just does not automatically update the invoice learning database. The process of updating the learning database is slow and cumbersome. Changes required admin level backend server access, which is quite often not possible. It also is not possible with the older solution to train some important fields, such as the company code, the vendor, or even the ability to train line items. For us to implement custom fields was difficult. It required a lot of scripting that wasn't standard ABAP scripting. It was often time consuming and delayed added a time impact to the original implementation. Also as well, BCC requires a separate SQL Server license, which then is another cost and another environment for our customers to have to maintain the backing up of that additional SQL Server. And finally, ICC BCC was only available in an on-premise edition. There was no SaaS-based cloud option available. So I'm going to do just another quick poll before I hand things over to Fatima. And the poll that I'm going to put out now is, how often with your current solution do you perform the adaptive recognition training or ART training? So try to give a couple of ranges there. So we see some that do daily or weekly. Excellent. Get some good results coming through. Perfect. All right, we will show those results towards the end of the session today. So I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague Fatima, who's going to take you through the future with Intelligent Capture for SAP, or as we often abbreviate it, is IC for SAP. So if you hear us refer to both, it's effectively the same product. So over to you now, Fatima.
Thank you, Dan. And morning, everyone, and thanks again for joining today. So Intelligent Capture for SAP, what is it? So it's essentially OpenText's latest OCR solution that's driven by advanced machine learning AI engine that continues to learn and improve invoice recognition, and thus reducing the manual effort required by your AP team to correct extracted information that may appear in the VIM business rule or one of our very favorite exceptions, missing mandatory information. Intelligent Capture has tighter integration with SAP, which reduces the administration overheads experienced with the older ICC, BCC solutions, such as scheduling the hotspots, which we had to schedule to share data between ICC and BCC and SAP. We no longer have to do that. Also, Intelligent Capture allows you to process different business documents, such as delivery notes and sales orders, not just invoices. And finally, OpenText has achieved these advancements with minimal changes to your AP processes or VIM screens, meaning the end user change management and training are fairly minimized. It's also now delivered in 2 editions. Firstly, an on-premise edition that is a direct like-for-like upgrade of your existing ICC BCC solution. As with the previous solution, Intelligent Capture runs on a Windows server that you supply. But unlike the previous solution, there's no longer a need for an SQL database, as the configuration is now maintained within SAP. The on-premise edition is proving popular with existing VIM customers wanting a like-for-like upgrade and not yet ready to move to the cloud. Alternatively is the new Core Capture SaaS option hosted out of the secure OpenText OT2 cloud. This option is proving popular with new VIM customers who want to start their invoice automation journey with a fully secure and managed cloud-hosted option. The 2 products offer similar functionality and end-user experience, just delivered differently. So let's take a quick comparison of the 4 editions, starting with the traditional ICC and BCC solutions on the left and the 2 new Intelligent Capture options in green on the right. What OpenText has effectively done is merge the ICC and BCC solutions together, delivering a single solution that processes not only invoices, but other business document types. They have moved the configuration from backend SQL Server into the SAP database for simplified administration and implemented AI and machine learning to not only improve the OCR recognition, but streamline the way in which the learning database is automatically updated to support improved recognition for the next invoice. So the way this works is as invoices enter SAP, the OCR engine, now supported by AI and machine learning, performs recognition of that invoice. If this was the first time the engine has seen an invoice from that supplier, then it might miss a few fields. These fields are then corrected manually in the validation step, where, unlike before, feedback is automatically and immediately fed back to the learning database. We'll have some real examples to show you how this works a little later on. Presented here are some stats from OpenText based on real customer implementations. What this graph is telling us is that when using Intelligent Capture, you expect us to get around 75 to 80% field recognition rate the first time the solution sees a new supply invoice. But once Intelligent Capture has seen that same supply invoice around 3 to 5 times, the recognition rate crosses the 90% mark, which is pretty impressive. We also wanted to share some of the important key new features released with Intelligent Capture for SAP. In the latest release, we now have the ability to reset the machine learning data and send a document back for retraining. So even with selective validation active, we can now retrain invoice templates if we need to. I will show how this is actioned a little bit later on. Learning data can be created in UAT and now moved into production and other environments, so which helps us save time during go live. Your AP team will now have the ability to reserve, assign, or change the priority of documents in the inbound queue to suit your daily workloads. And finally, the latest version of VIM from 20.4 onwards is delivered with a new OCR extraction analytics report. This report presents the raw data of how the Intelligent Capture engine is performing on recognition, so we can quickly analyze which are the problem fields on a particular invoice. So some key takeaways about the differences between BCC and ICC and IC for SAP. Recognition. IC for SAP uses the old knowledge base of invoice templates and AI, which produces more accurate recognition results. Training invoice templates, much simpler, and we can train all header and line item fields, so better for matching optimization. Configuration, faster to build, and we can configure all the settings in SAP, so these changes are transportable to each new environment. Hardware, no SQL server required, and also important to note with the support lifecycle, IC for SAP support ends in May 2027 and BCC in 2 years' time. The examples we're about to show were taken using real custom invoice data across 4 different vendors. For the purpose of the demonstration today, we've anonymized the data while retaining the actual OCR performance results. The invoice examples were provided by one of our customers, which had been somewhat troublesome for BCC to recognize. So in short, these were troublesome invoices. In this table on the left, we have a list of the common fields we extract from the invoice, and on the right are the results of the first OCR run using Intelligent Capture for 4 separate vendors. As you can see with these challenging invoices, the best we were able to achieve was a 55% recognition rate on the first OCR run for vendors A and C, and less for vendors B and D. Now, let's look at the results after processing the third invoice OCR run for each of the same 4 vendors. As you will see, we have achieved almost 100% recognition across all vendors. In the test we performed, it only took 3 invoices to train the learning database unit using Intelligent Capture. Let's now look at an example of one of the invoices in the validation client. Again, we've anonymized this invoice by adding our Chrome logo and covering some confidential details. But as you can see, Intelligent Capture wasn't able to recognize 5 of the fields during the first OCR run. The user then provides feedback by using single-click entry in the validation client to populate the missing fields. Let's now look at the results of recognizing the second invoice for the same supplier. This time, 3 of the 5 fields shown in green were captured, leaving only the PO number and currency to fill in. Remember, as we're completing the missing fields in the validation step using feedback, we're also automatically training the learning database at the same time. Now, once the third invoice is processed for the same vendor, all 5 items are recognized, and that's the level of recognition you should expect for that vendor's invoice going forward. A question we're often asked by AP teams is how you can send an invoice back for retraining in Intelligent Capture. In the latest version of VIM, a new retraining feature has been included that allows any AP team member the ability to issue a problem invoice template back to Intelligent Capture engine for retraining. Step 1, as is shown here, is to change the status to restart for training feedback. Step 2, you push the invoice back through to validation to provide feedback. What's really important to highlight here is that with the Intelligent Capture for SAP, your AP team is able to manage the process of retraining invoices right from within their VIM screens, unlike the way it works in BCC ICC, where these tasks are performed on the back-end server by administrators. This feature alone cuts down on hours of time delays and frustrations with getting access to servers. Before I hand over to Daniel to talk about how to move to Intelligent Capture, we will have our final poll. Thanks, Dan. So please can you share with everyone, what is the biggest challenge with your existing OCR solution? Quality of invoices, system performance, quality of OCR results, difficulty performing ART training, or other? Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Just end that poll now. We'll come back and have a look at those results shortly. So now I'm going to have a little bit of a talk about how do we move to Intelligent Capture. So we've sort of gone through, the challenges that Business Capture Center had, how those have been improved in the new Intelligent Capture SAP solution, but you're now probably asking, how do we move to Intelligent Capture, and particularly based on our experience. So firstly, let's look at new VIM implementations. So when it comes to a new implementation of VIM, at that point in time, you'll need to decide what edition of the solution, of the OCR solution that you would look for. So would you go for the on-premise Intelligent Capture edition, or would you go for the cloud-based, what we call Core Capture edition? And like we said before, they're effectively the same solution, but they're delivered quite differently. Secondly, then OpenText then recommends that we use one Intelligent Capture server per SAP landscape. We also strongly suggest that you focus on providing quality test data within UAT. And what we mean by that is using real supplier invoices, not mock invoices, with real supplier data, because the quality of the learning and the testing that you do in UAT can now be migrated into production. So then on day one of your go live, you've already got, ideally, invoices pre-trained for some of your key suppliers. So they will just skip straight through validation, and they will already be trained. And that we see that particularly in projects where that is that's been a key focus in really good quality UAT training. We're seeing much quicker results to populating the learning database on day one. Now this option varies from customer to customer, but we typically advise that you keep validation on for at least 2 to 3 months, because you want to give the Intelligent Capture engine sufficient time and opportunity to recognize an invoice for a supplier at least 3 times. So you might have some suppliers that are issuing invoices weekly. They'll be recognized really quickly. You might have some suppliers, particularly service-based, they may only invoice you once a month. So after about 2 to 3 months, that you would then see very high recognition results for that supplier. So when it comes to upgrading to Intelligent Capture, if you're an existing BCC ICC customer, and I would safely say that's probably most of the people on the webinar today, first off, have a chat to SAP and OpenText around what is the appropriate products. and what license that you may require, depending on your different types of maintenance level that you have at the moment. So you have a quick conversation with OpenText and SAP about that. If you need any advice, also reach out to us, more than happy to help. Again, for an upgrade, OpenText recommends that you provide one IC for SAP's Windows Server for each environment. But most importantly, you cannot implement Intelligent Capture for SAP on the same BCC server that you have already. What we're, one is that the software is not compatible for the two to run on the same server. But secondly, most of our customers with BCC are running older versions of Windows Server, like Windows 2012 or 2016, that are towards the end of their life cycle anyway. So if you're upgrading now, you would put a brand new Windows, the latest operating system, and we would do what we call a parallel upgrade, and where we build Intelligent Capture in parallel. We then do your the project, and then during the go live we cut over. So then we're minimizing your outage window. But definitely have to have a parallel server. And then the old BCC server, once we've upgraded, that can be decommissioned and turned off. So we then go through the process of building your current invoice templates designs within BCC, that we sort of get them manually rebuilt with an IC for SAP. And after which all the changes are now attached to SAP transports, as opposed to before, the configuration was in two systems and very little of it was attached to an SAP transport. Now, almost all the configuration is attached to an SAP transport. There's no configuration done in the back end. And finally, with the latest versions of Intelligent Capture, it's now possible to migrate across your existing BCC learning data into IC for SAP. So if you've been using BCC for many years, you've got really good learning database with your current suppliers, that does not have to go to waste. What we can do is export that learning data and we can import it now into Intelligent Capture. So day one, that data is there ready to go and support the learning database and it's not lost. That wasn't always possible in early releases. So there were early, that functionality I think has only come in the last couple of months, and we're basically doing that on all the implementations now. But yeah, certainly earlier releases didn't provide the functionality, but it's there from now on. So we get asked this question quite a lot, is what version do I implement? And this is an extract of OpenText's compatibility matrix. So as you can tell from this, there's lots of combinations and versions of VIM, different versions that support ECC, S4HANA, different editions of S4HANA. There's also correlating Intelligent Capture versions that need to be paired and matched up to the appropriate version of VIM. So what we suggest is when it comes time to planning your next upgrade, give us a call. Our team are more than happy to spend some time with you just understanding what are your versions of VIM, what is the versions of Intelligent Capture, what are you doing with SAP, are you on ECC, are you moving to S4? And then we can give you some advice and analyze this matrix for you and give you some recommendations on what the right versions are with no obligation. So more than happy to help anyone out that is needing some advice on pairing up the right version. So now a few other lessons that we can share from our previous implementations. Look, and what we've learned is that the validation step is really, really important, particularly for the first few weeks after go live, because validation is the step that feeds the learning database. Validation didn't do that before in BCC, but validation now is a very important step, and that is the best way to accelerate the learning database. As I touched on before, use real supplier invoices during UAT, and can't be stressed that how important that is, because on your go live, we will have a database populated with real supplier examples, and it means you don't have to retrain the system in the production system during the go live. So we also consistently see improvements in invoice processing when our customers engage their suppliers to educate them on how to improve the recognition of their invoices. And by making some small changes relating to the invoice formats and data can make a big improvement in the recognition. So remember, suppliers want their invoices paid on time. And then we find that customers that have conversations with their suppliers to fix their invoices have a much higher zero-touch processing rate and therefore happier suppliers and ultimately less cost to you for managing the process. And finally, we strongly recommend recording a baseline of your current OCR recognition performance for the few months before you upgrade to Intelligent Capture, and then for a couple of months after. So by doing this, and we do this in all of our upgrades and implementations now, but it allows you to quickly identify areas that have improved, and then you might also find some areas that require some tuning or improvement post go live. And some of those may not be with the recognition, but it may be with downstream processes that may look like recognition, but it's actually not. It's some other exception that's triggering off. But by recording a baseline before and after, that's a really important way to try and really hone in and very quickly narrow down on some of the issues that you might see and that require a little bit of performance tuning. So just to extend on that last point, so during our last webinar back in June, we presented the Turnpike's Insight and Analytics KPI dashboard for VIM. So what the INA dashboard is showing here is a dedicated OCR performance dashboard. So using this, we can really quickly see which fields have been successfully extracted, as opposed to those that are blank and those which were validated quite successfully. So important, you can use some filters here on the left-hand side to filter down to a single company code. You can filter down to different suppliers. So you might pick a certain supplier and look at the fields that are consistently causing problems from that supplier. So you can then go and have a conversation with them. So if you missed our last webinar and you're interested in some further information about the Turnpike's Insight and Analytics dashboard, then please reach out to Fatima or myself. My contact details, I'll have them up on the screen at the end of the webinar. So just want to talk a little bit about our experience with Intelligent Capture. So we were the first partner here in Australia to implement Intelligent Capture for SAP. Since then, we've completed 4 upgrades and 3 new implementations, and we've got a few new implementations that have just kicked off and on the way. So we've got a really extensive experience with this solution set. We also have regular contact with product management, so when we see issues, we get them sent back up and feedback into the product itself. In addition, our experienced consultants have also been brought into other implementations towards the end to quality check and triage because of our recognition around our experience. And also just as a bit of a guide, we're seeing these upgrades. If you're an existing BCC customer, an upgrade to Intelligent Capture typically takes around 2 to 3 months. That can depend on a couple of variables, particularly around how much time we have from the AP team to do testing and so forth, but that's a typical benchmark to be looking at. So before I roll over now to our the poll results, I just want to quickly talk a little bit about Chrome Consulting and how our organisation helps customers solve real-world challenges. So effectively, Chrome Consulting consists of 4 pillars, and at the heart of that is our customer. So firstly, we're the largest and most experienced implementer of OpenText and SAP enterprise content management solutions. We're helping our customers with their chaotic and fragmented content to improve business outcomes such as efficiency, safety, and compliance. Our solutions help bring the Microsoft and SAP worlds together. We also have a team who uses industry-leading technology solutions such as Celonis and the Turnpike's dashboard I showed earlier to gain insight into our customers' business processes and help identify opportunities for process improvement. As you already know, we're quite well recognised for the work we do and implementations for SAP vendor invoice management. So we've got a large team delivering VIM projects. And finally, our team also helps protect our customers' investment with post-implementation care and managed support services. So please feel free to reach out to us if we can assist your organisation with any of your other information management or content management requirements. So we also have a series of prepackaged solutions that are quick to deliver with actionable outcomes. ranging from VIM roadmaps and health checks through to archive server upgrades and migrations. So if you're starting to plan your next VIM or Intelligent Capture upgrade, let us know and we can help support your planning with one of our VIM upgrade assessment packages that we offer. So during this assessment, what we'll do is we'll actually take a selection of your challenging vendor invoices and run them through our Intelligent Capture setup, and we will firsthand give you a demonstration of what sort of results that you can expect from Intelligent Capture prior to you actually heading down the path of doing your upgrade. And finally, our team is continuing to grow. We've got a really successful graduate program with new intakes happening in the coming months. So if you know anyone that's interested in joining our growing dynamic team, then please get them to reach out to us at careers@chromeconsulting.com.au. So I'm now going to open it up for questions. And I'm just having a look now. We've got 2 questions. So I think first question we've got through from Ranillo is, what if some of the mandatory requirements is missing on the invoice, except, for example, currency, and how does IC for SAP handle that?
Okay, I'll take that one, Dan.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely, currency can be trained. And as it is today, I think you can train it with BCC and ICC also. But it can be tricky if the quality of the invoice isn't good. And the other issue we have had in the past is with dollar signs, where obviously you've got dollar for New Zealand and USD in Australia. What you can use though is also there's a standard logic module that VIM has where you can actually pick up the currency from the purchase order. So we generally recommend that to our clients anyway, to use that logic module for purchase orders, because that basically is more robust.
Another question that's come in is, currently we have plenty of people who's validating the invoices in validation client. What if they have different ways of capturing the information on the invoice? Would that affect the IC for SAP machine learning?
So that's a good question. I would say that, so with the validation client, it's single click entry, so it shouldn't, basically, where you're just clicking on the field where you see it in the image and it will populate the field in the validation client, so shouldn't. But it can be tricky where you've got things like ABN numbers which have spaces, so you'd have to make sure you drag across and capture all of the characters, but generally it shouldn't really impact it now.
Got another question here from Anushka. Does upgrade have an on-premise versus cloud option for IC for SAP? And the answer is yes. So you can, so new implementations can go either way, but so can an upgrade. So you can choose to go to the cloud option, but what we would recommend is having a look at the feature list, particularly, I guess, for yourselves, there's a lot of international currency and characters as well. So we'd have to have a look at that, whether the cloud edition. So I would say that the cloud edition is probably just slightly behind the on-premise edition in terms of the features and functionality is what we're seeing. So I would safely say most of the new features we're seeing would go into the on-premise edition first. But question. Got another question here. So what's some of the typical change management and training requirements that might come through? So did you want to answer that one, Fatima? That's just around the training and change management. We get asked that a lot.
So we always strongly recommend, it's always an opportunity to engage with your suppliers, because educate them also on what is a good quality invoice for recognition, what that looks like. And generally, as we've said before, suppliers want to be on the journey because they realize, it's in their interest as well. For upgrades, we always say also having your AP teams involved as early as possible for testing, for knowledge transfer, And yeah, so basically those are the main areas: keeping your AP team involved as much as possible, and keeping suppliers on the journey as well, I'd say.
Cool. So I'm going to move on now to the poll results. But if you've got any more questions, please reach out to us. I'll put up our contact details at the end to book a time. And yeah, more than happy to run through. We can give you, like I said, send us through a couple of your invoices. More than happy to have a look at those and give you some recommendations. And also around the versioning, that's quite a complex topic. We've got a lot of experience about picking the versions and that to help guide you through. So we can certainly give you some assistance there. So I'm going to move on now to the poll results. So the first question that we had, so do you think the invoice recognition results impact the touchless processing? And 100% yes, so that is quite a unanimous response there. Now I'm going to move over to poll question number 2, share the results. So what OCR recognition performance are you currently achieving? And almost 50% are between the 25 and 50% range. So that certainly you would find if you're getting recognition rates at that level, a solution like Intelligent Capture and upgrading to that would certainly get you much greater first past recognition results. And like we showed with the example earlier, after 2 to 3 attempts at that invoice, you're getting up into the 90% plus. Poll number 3, share those results. So how often are you performing adaptive recognition or the ART training? So we've got the majority are doing that monthly. So I guess taking from that is that you're not seeing the invoice recognition improvements for at least probably one to 2 monthly cycles. Some are doing daily, and that's excellent to see that happening daily. And that is with BCC is the only way to get the database updated is to go through that task daily. But like we're saying, that we find that a lot of clients are just, it's very difficult to get the results and go through all of the process to get that moved through daily. And I guess 25% never. So that's certainly a missed opportunity there, not getting those the best OCR recognition results and updating of the learning database if that ART training is never completed. So it's good. So just going to now share up the last poll. So what's the biggest challenge with the current OCR solution? So I guess equal percentage on quality of the invoices is one, and then difficulty of performing ART training. So that, as you would have seen in the talk about Intelligent Capture today, the difficulty in performing the ART training is basically eliminated with Intelligent Capture. That's one of the big areas of complaints with the old product that has been addressed in Intelligent Capture. Basically eliminated the whole ART training and streamline the ability to update that learning engine as quick as possible. And I guess quality of invoices, and that's something we sort of, like we're saying, talking to your suppliers around, what does a good quality invoice look like? What are the things you shouldn't do? So color, I think you were saying, Fatima, is one of the areas, shading, just how they space their data, things like that really help improve OCR engines. So whether you put spaces in the ABN or not, just little changes like that can, greatly improve getting that invoice through. And like we're saying, a lot of suppliers want to hear that. So we actually did that process ourselves, and we did an analysis even over our invoices that we issue, just to make sure that all of the tips and tricks that we've learned, we apply to our own, because it's just to improve the recognition and zero touch results.